Game theory is a lot like telling a story. We have characters. The characters interact according to some rules, and when the characters are vivid and their interaction is compelling and familiar, we suspend disbelief about the constructed universe and go along with the story and see the lesson that it unfolds. This is a story about Ruth, Anthony, and Clarence. So Ruth, Anthony, and Clarence are a 3-person committee, and they meet every week to decide on important decisions. And the way they operate is the decision is presented to them. They go back into their private chambers and they research the decision. And they meet as a group and they vote. And every week the vote is either left or right. But even that kind of decision-making procedure can go haywire, and this is a story about how that can happen. Let's suppose that the first week that Ruth, Anthony, and Clarence meet to vote, Clarence votes left, Ruth votes right, and Anthony breaks the tie by, let's say, voting left. And then they break, and they go back to their chambers, and Ruth debriefs with her assistants, and her assistants whisper in her ear saying, we've heard a rumor about Clarence that he's an ideological partisan, and he always votes to the left. And Ruth, at the beginning, doesn't believe these rumors. She thinks he's a fair-minded decision maker, and she ignores this at the beginning. But suppose that it happens again the next week. Ruth votes right, Clarence votes left, and Anthony breaks the tie. And suppose this happens a few weeks in a row. And notice that this could happen a few weeks in a row, not because Clarence is a partisan, but just because Clarence, in his own chambers, his own research leads him to think that week after week, the right choice was left. And if that happens, Ruth's suspicions become repeatedly confirmed. And at some point, she becomes so suspicious that it becomes in her strategic interest to be polarized herself. And here's why. Ruth knows that if Clarence really is voting left every week, then this committee has a built-in bias. There's always one guaranteed vote for the left. But if she votes left according to her research, then the decision is already made. There's already a majority in favor of left, and there's no way for Anthony's information to be reflected in the decision. And so Ruth responds to this by pulling to the right herself. That is, forgetting about her research, voting right just to counteract the bias of Clarence. Clarence, even if he's a fair-minded decision maker and just caught up in this trap, will himself notice that Ruth is always voting to the right, and his decision will now be to vote always to the left. And eventually, this committee becomes completely polarized, with Clarence and Ruth on the wings, always voting in opposite directions, leaving only Anthony in the middle as the unique swing vote, the guy that always votes in the majority, the most powerful member of the committee.